So you want to start a podcast? Fantastic. This video is going to help you on how you can get started from beginning to end so that you can launch your podcast in hopefully as quick a time as possible. Hi, my name is Kyle from Social Geeks Digital Agency. If you're wanting to start a podcast, I want to walk you through exactly what you're going to need to know in order to launch your podcast in record time. It's never been easier than today to start a podcast, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be an easy task. You'll have to put in hours and hours recording your show, editing your podcast, promoting and distributing it across multiple channels. However, once you've done the work, which to be fully transparent will likely take you weeks, if not longer, depending on the time that you have to commit to your podcast, you need to make sure that people are actually listening to your podcast and not just skipping over it. You do have to learn a lot of different things and figure out who exactly you want to talk to, what problems you're going to solve, and what your goals are for your podcast. You're gonna have to figure out what cameras you need, recording equipment, video editing software, podcast distribution software. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you're gonna need to research in order to find it. I'm hoping that we'll be able to go through this for you so that you can watch this and get started straight away. A lot of people think that starting a podcast is easy and it's simple to get things started. I'm sorry, but those people are wrong. Podcasting is hard work, but it's worth the effort if you really want to do it. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Before you go and switch the lights on and start recording, it's a really good idea to make a plan about your podcast before you get started. Open up a Word doc or wherever you can take down some notes and start with this. What is the goal of your podcast? Think about who you're wanting to speak to. Who's your target market? What are the problems that are facing your target market that you want to talk about and help them solve? And additionally, what are your goals of what you want to achieve out of this podcast? Is it to grow a community of like-minded people who are super passionate about the topic that you're interested in? Could be that you're interested in a sports team or you really like Pokemon. It doesn't really matter, but if you're trying to build a community around your podcast, it's important to understand that that is the goal. Another common goal for starting a podcast could be that you want to attract more clients in your industry who are interested in the topics that you're talking about. If you're an expert at digital marketing, or you're an expert at recruitment, or you're an expert at human resources, and you're able to help your clients to create a good culture in their workforce for their employees and manage their well-being, then great, you can start a podcast and you can talk about certain topics that would be of value to your target market, to your ideal customer. On this brainstorming document, map down your goals, and once you've got a list of different goals and the audience that you want to serve, try to write a mission statement of what it is that you want to do. For example, the Social Geeks podcast is trying to help small business owners and startups leapfrogging all the obstacles in their way to growing their business. I'm trying to be a one-stop shop of information that can help curate the best tips available for small business owners to thrive. Learning all about digital marketing and startup tips, they can grow their business without having to spend a huge amount of time researching it on their own. The ultimate goal of my podcast is to help as many businesses as I can to scale beyond the $1 million a year in revenue. That's pretty cool. Once you've had a chance to document some of the goals and you've created a mission statement, the next thing you want to go through is what are the topics of your podcast? For me, it's business, it's marketing, it's content creation. These are all topics that I'm pretty passionate about. In addition, another topic that I love is sustainability and looking at how can businesses become more socially conscious and less impactful on the environment by looking at reducing plastic and carbon emissions and all of the above. So you can talk about the different topics that you would like to discuss on your podcast. Once you've outlined these few things, the next big thing that you're going to need to decide on is what is the name of your podcast. I think that names don't have to be the be all and end all. It's kind of like a logo. You can go through iterations. You can rename things. However, a catchy name will help. I really like Jenna Kutcher's Goal Diggers podcast because I think it's such a cool name and it really does define who she's talking to. It's female entrepreneurs and it's putting a really clever spin on gold diggers versus gold diggers. So that's a really clever example of an amazing podcast name. But what is your podcast about and what names do you want to go for? Try to steer clear of any kind of naming that could be maybe misconstrued or too popular. A good example would be like the Michael Jordan podcast or something along those lines, the Harry Potter podcast. You probably want to create your own unique spin on it and try to find a catchy name that suits and summarizes the name of your podcast really well. And try not to as well make the name too long. You really want to make it short, sweet, punchy, and concise to what it is that you're going to talk about. So we've decided a name, which is probably one of the hardest parts of any type of venture, is coming up with a good name. We've talked about your goals and what you're wanting to achieve with your podcast. We've talked about who you're going to talk to. The next thing that you want to start doing is document out the overview of your podcast. Come up with a few paragraphs to talk about what your podcast is about and the backstory of it. This will become your digital profile that you're going to be posting around on different platforms, on your website, on Spotify, Apple, you name it. This will be the overview that you're going to share across the internet about your podcast. So you want it to be well written, you want it to be on point, and you want it to explain who you are, what you do, and why you do it. These are all important things that you want to do for your podcast. Last but not least, on this brainstorming document that you've put together for your podcast, you want to start looking at the format and the length of your podcast. Do you want to do 5 to 10 minute episodes, or are you looking to do a 3-hour interview like the Joe Rogan podcast? Are you looking to bring on guests and have them talk for hours at a time? Or are you wanting to do short, bite-sized pieces that people can listen to on the way to the gym or on the way to work, or can just chuck on and not have to commit 2 hours of their life to your podcast? You want to figure out that format and what would be suitable. There's no rules here. You can have 5-minute episodes and then 2-hour episodes, but your listeners are probably looking for a bit of consistency here. If they know what to expect, then they will more likely come back and keep subscribing and keep listening to your podcast. I do find that some podcasts, like the Gary Vee podcast, goes from 5 minutes to 2 hours, and he records everything from keynote speaking that he does through to workshops that he does through to just him in the car talking to his phone. So his podcast is known for that. And I do agree with Gary Vee in pretty much everything that he says because he's amazing, but also the fact that you're kind of looking more at quantity than you are in terms of being too rigid in how you're putting out content. At the end of the day, things have changed. You don't need to have a 30-minute episode because you're not trying to get that on radio. It doesn't have to fit into a really concise schedule. You're not putting this on TV. People can consume it in their own time, and they can pick and choose your episodes based on the length that they want. If you're anything like me and you listen to a lot of podcasts, then you know that you might be busy on the go and you're just looking for a really short podcast, but you like the person that you're subscribed to. So you'll go and pick some of their podcasts and add it to your queue. It might be that you have a gym session, or you're cleaning the house, or you're picking up groceries, and you want to listen to something that is going to be like a good hour-long episode. So you can pick and choose those as you see fit. So it's kind of just coming up with your own idea of how you want to record your content, what length is it going to be, and just defining that a little bit clearer for yourself. Now that you've documented everything, congratulations. You now have a pretty clear and concise idea of what type of podcast you're about to launch. The topics that you're looking to talk about, the format that you want to take. Is it going to be interview? Is it going to be long form? Is it going to be short? And you've got an idea of who you're going to be talking to, which I think is very important. The next thing we're going to talk about now is what gear do you need when you're starting a podcast? This is probably the most daunting section. It doesn't need to be, and we're going to talk about why, and we'll talk about a few different things to get things started. I do think that there's a few key things that you're going to need, though, in order to start a podcast. You're going to need a good camera, you're going to need a good microphone, and you're going to need good lighting. Those 3 things are the basics for recording. And if you're able to record and get some decent quality video and audio, then you're pretty much on your way. Everything else you can outsource to somebody to help you with editing your podcast, or get somebody to chop it up and put things together for you. I do think good lighting is important, and this is something that my good friend Henny always highlights to me. Getting some ring lights from Kmart to start with is not a bad idea. I think that you can start with your phone, you can use a lapel mic like this one here, and plug that into, if you have a second phone like me, I've got so many spare phones that I just don't know what to do with, that are old and just lying in my drawer. And what you can do is you can get a lapel mic like this that just clips onto your shirt, plug it into your phone, hit record there, have your phone on a ring light, which I do here. So I've got a decent phone that's in 4K, good high quality recording, and I have that there, able to record the video while this records the audio. Now that might be a bit over the top. Some people might just start with recording everything off their phone, but I do think that having good audio makes a world of difference for a podcast. So that's some of the gear that you're going to need to kick things off and start your podcast. You're going to need a good camera. So it could be your phone with a decent camera, and you need a microphone as well as some basic lighting. Now, I've actually got a blog on our website that outlines a few other experts in the lighting field. It's definitely not my expertise, but you want to have a front-facing light, a side-facing light, and some backlighting as well to make things look really good. But there's a whole tutorial on our blog, on our website, that you can go through and check that out. In addition, if you are looking to record multiple people and you have people all over the world and you'd like to find a great way to record them in high quality, A tool that I highly recommend is Riverside FM. Riverside is great because it's just like Zoom or Skype, except that it records each of the different people's audio separately. The difference between that and Zoom is that Zoom records all of your audio in one big chunky file. If people are talking over one another, if there's ever any overlap, if somebody has a quieter level than another person, it's just going to be very difficult for your producer or your editor to be able to fix that. So you do want to try using a great tool like Riverside, which will help you in recording multiple people at once. And it also helps you show what the audio levels are like. It helps show you if there's any connection issues, if the camera's not in great quality. And you probably want to be looking at these things before you hit record. So Riverside is great for that. It just helps you record multiple people at once and is kind of your, let's call it your podcasting studio, but online. I love Riverside. I've used it multiple times with different clients and interviews, and I'd highly recommend it. The next stage in terms of your equipment is if you're looking to edit your podcast yourself, this is where you want to be looking at what tools are available for you. One of the best tools I've ever found is a tool called Descript. Descript allows you to upload your files into their platform, your audio, your video, etc., and it will transcribe that for you into a text-based version. And it will help you edit that as if you're editing a Word doc. It's a really cool platform, and I highly recommend it. It's what I'm using to edit this for all of you to enjoy. So Descript is a fantastic tool, and it will save you hours of time editing your podcast or video. Editing video is probably one of the tougher elements of running a podcast because you're going to have to look at creating an intro, an outro, putting in any ads or sponsors, and then crafting your content to remove filler words like like, so, all of that, and get it into a really good format. The editing side is quite challenging, but if you've got time, you can do this. If you've got money, you can outsource this to people to help you get that done. So it really is a balance of, would you rather invest your time to do this yourself and save on money, or would you rather pay a professional and get it done quicker, or just not have to worry about it? So you can find that balance. When it comes to recording your first episode, you are going to want to make sure that you have some form of script before you start. A script doesn't need to be word for word so that you're going through and reading a document or having like a script in front of you so that you can go through it. It really is just bullet points so that you know what you want to talk about and getting through those in a concise manner. I think the first podcast that you want to do, you just want to try testing out your lighting, your recording, and make sure that everything looks right and is recording well. Before you launch into a massive spiel, make sure that your audio is recording and your video is recording. So do a test take first, have a look at it, make sure everything is positioned right, that you're happy with the lighting, you're happy with the audio, and you're happy with the way that you look, and then you can start recording. That first episode is really good for you to introduce who you are, what you do, and what the podcast is all about. So give it a go, record it, and just remember, just let it flow. You're more than welcome to make mistakes because you can always edit those out. If you want to take multiple takes, you can. So just take your time. Don't feel like you have to rush through everything. Don't feel like you have to get it right the first time. You can constantly come back to what you're saying and just take your time, take a deep breath, and start over. I think this is something that a lot of people freak out, is that it needs to be perfect and you have to get it right. But unless you're doing a live video stream, like a long form interview or anything like that, you can just do it over and over until you're happy with that. I think a lot of people don't realize that. You'll see people saying the same thing over and over again, and you just take the take and you just edit in the take that you like the best. So get comfortable with just talking to the camera. Imagine as if it's a friend that you're talking to about a topic that they're interested in. For example, with this podcasting, I'm imagining a friend who has asked me about podcasting before and said, how do you get started? This video is for you. And I'm hoping that this video will help you in getting started on your own podcast. Once you've recorded your first episode, upload it into Descript or your editing software and just have a play around with things. The point of this is to get comfortable with some of the tools and understand how things work. There's a step-by-step process that I find really helpful whenever I'm recording a podcast. Essentially, I'll start with the research first. I'll look at some topics that I want to talk about. I'll create a script and start pre-producing the episode. I'll then get ready for production. So I'll make sure I have my lighting, my cameras, I have my microphone, everything good to go. And then once I've recorded, I'll get into the production and editing phase. So I'll upload my files into Descript. I'll check the levels of the audio. I'll sync up my audio file and video so that they're at the same point. And then I will start going through and editing the podcast. The editing will be most likely the most time-consuming part of this process. So don't get too frustrated when you first start out. You will need to learn the tools, you'll have to get started. And that's why I recommend Descript, because if you know how to edit a Word document, you should be able to edit a podcast and get that started as well. There are so many cool tools that you can use in Descript to get things started as well, but I'll save that for maybe another tutorial video. Perhaps you can comment below to let me know that you're interested in getting a tutorial on Descript, and I'd love to go through that in the future. So let me know what you think. Once you've worked through the incredibly fun and daunting task of editing your video and podcast, what you want to do is export the audio file, the video file, and your text transcript so that you can use this across the different channels you're going to promote it on. What I like to do is I like to take the transcript and upload that as a blog article on my website. I'll take the video and upload that to YouTube and Facebook and sometimes LinkedIn. And then I'll take the audio and I'll upload that to my distribution software, which helps me distribute the podcast to Apple Podcasts, to Spotify, to Google Podcasts, and pretty much anyone else out there that helps people listen to podcasts. I use a tool called Podbean, which I'll link into the show notes for you, which helps you in uploading your audio file and then distributing that out to all of the different podcasting channels. Before you go though, you do need to create cover art for your podcast and a thumbnail for YouTube and other video platforms. So this will generally be you looking shocked, or you holding a microphone, or you doing whatever it is that you do, along with text to explain what that episode is all about. There are different formats for this cover art, but just do a quick Google search, you'll be able to find it. I've linked this in our blog article as well on our Social Geeks website if you do want those exact dimensions. Generally for podcast art, it's a square image, so 15 by 1500 pixels. And then for YouTube art, I can't remember off the top of my head, sorry. So last but not least, you've got your podcast ready to go. You've edited it, you've uploaded it to Podbean, you've uploaded the video to YouTube, and you've got everything ready to go saved as a draft. You've put in your description for the podcast, you've got some links back to your website, everything's looking pretty good. You've even uploaded your thumbnails and your cover art so that everything's looking as best as it can. What's the next step? The next thing to do is get it out there. So you want to publish your podcast and you want to promote that on your social media channels, on your email list, send it to your friends, your family, any clients that might be interested. If there's any community groups or Reddit forums or anything like that where you think that you could promote this to an audience that would be interested, go for it. This is the way that you want to do it. You can schedule to publish things at a certain time. So on Podbean, you can say, I want this to go live 10 a.m. on Friday. Same goes for YouTube and all the other platforms. So with video, audio, you should be able to schedule that and then do your pre-promotion leading up to that launch date. Once you've gone live, the last thing that you want to do is make sure that you're listening to any feedback, comments that you're getting from your audience. And remember that it's all about consistency. I think the hardest part about anything in life is being consistent, making sure that you show up and that you're doing things on a regular basis. Nowadays, it's not so much about having one piece of amazing content. It's about consistently putting out content, and there will be people who respond well to at least some of it. You don't know what's going to go viral in this world. You can't really control that. Nobody's a guru and just knows with magic dust that this is going to be the thing that blows up. You just don't know, and you can't predict it either. So what you want to do is you want to be consistent. Stick to a schedule. Make sure that you're actually recording content and you're getting it out there on a regular basis as well. This is definitely advice that I need to hear from myself, and I hope that it helps you as well. If you are looking for help in terms of getting your podcast going, we are offering a Launch Your Podcast package, which can help you in doing all the things that we talked about today. I love audio engineering. I love talking about this type of stuff. So if you do want to book in a consultation and go through things, I would love to chat. If you are running a podcast already, but you're struggling with the editing or you're struggling with any aspects that we talked about today, again, you can reach out and we can help you in making sure that's going. My name's Kyle from Social Geeks. I really appreciate you watching today's video. Please make sure that you subscribe to us on YouTube and wherever you're listening to this. And if you liked today's episode, please make sure that you leave a review so that I know that people are liking what we're putting out. With all that said, really appreciate you guys listening, and I hope that you have a great day. Take care, everyone.